Everyone, I'm Julie Moore-Wolf. I'm the mayor of Decatur, and I have the honor of welcoming you here today. If I told you you could make $1,400 in 4 minutes, wouldn't you jump at the chance? Well, that's what we're asking people to do. Fill out your census, because that is the minimal amount that comes back to our community when you fill out the census. As you may know, Decatur has lost a great deal of our population in the last decade, and so it's even more critical than ever that we count every single person we have in our community. And the city's been working very hard to get that done. We have been out at our COVID screenings. We've been at the Oasis. We have been on our transit system, getting people to fill out the census everywhere we possibly can. We have been at our day shelter, our homeless shelters. We've been trying to get out into the neighborhoods because we want to take the census out to the people to make sure that people understand that this is a good thing for them. It's a good thing for their community. It matters to us, to each and every one of us. And I'm very honored that Governor Pritzker is here today. In my many, many decades in Illinois, I don't ever remember a governor who has gone around the state nonstop trying to make the census count to everybody. So he's here in Decatur today as we enter our final push, our final weeks of trying to get our community counted. It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce Illinois Governor, and my favorite governor, Pritzker.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. And I might say, I also want to thank you for your leadership in this very difficult time. COVID-19 has made leadership an important criterion for how we're going to get through this. And, Mayor Moore-Wolf has really demonstrated the kind of leadership that I'd love to see everywhere in this state. And it's one of the reasons why I love to come back to Decatur over and over again, and I'm glad to be back today. So thank you again for hosting me. Thanks to Senator Andy Manar and to Representative Dan Calkins and to Dr. Ngozi Onora and to Illinois Department of Human Services Secretary Grace Ho for joining us today. Before we get to the principal portion of today's topic, I want to highlight that yesterday I announced a $7.5 million round of funding from the Illinois COVID-19 Recovery Fund. In total, over $30 million has gone to support organizations helping communities all across the state with significant investments in central and southern Illinois, including $500,000 right here in Decatur, and that's before yesterday's dollars went out. I'm grateful to everyone who was able to contribute to this effort, this private 501c3 that was so beneficial, especially in the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic, and to those across the state who run the incredible organizations that are helping individuals and families get through this pandemic. Now to the topic at hand today. The people that are with me today, that are standing behind me, share a common mindset, a commitment to doing the essential and necessary work that will shape the next decade of federal funding and congressional representation for Illinois. And we have 21 days remaining to secure the best count that we can, 21 days. And Decatur, the stakes could not be higher for you. Every 10 years in this country, we count the number of people who live in this state, and based upon that number, the federal government gives our state funding for schools and hospitals and childcare and roads and much more. And the higher the count, the more of your federal tax money comes back to Illinois instead of going to other states, and the more representatives we get in Congress. Just a 1% undercount could result in the state losing over $195 million in federal funds at a time when we need our full funding the most. Today, when Illinoisans pay our federal taxes, we're one of only 10 states that gets back less than we pay, and it's been that way for some time. We can do so much better. And all of you can help by simply getting counted in the census. We're competing against all the other states in the United States, and we're doing reasonably well so far. Right now, Illinois is number 2 among the most populous states and number 7 overall in our response rate to the census. But we can't rest on our laurels, with 21 days left especially. I'm here today because I want to be sure that the Decatur community gets its fair share and that all of you get counted. Right now, Decatur's response rate is 8 points up from just 2 weeks ago. But at 66%, it's lower than the rate for the rest of Macon County of 69.7% and lower than the state rate of 70%. Let's get this right for Decatur. Call your friends, call your neighbors, send them a text or email them, and urge them all to do their part by going online. It's very easy. my2020census.gov, my2020census.gov, and fill out the form. It takes less than 10 minutes. Just like voting, filling out the census is an act of civic engagement. It's a demand to be fully heard and to be fully counted. It's easy to get counted. You can do it on your mobile phone. You can do it right now. It's just a few questions. Like I said, it's less than 10 minutes. For many people, it takes about 5 minutes, and it's more important than ever before. It will bring more investment, better schools, better roads, better healthcare to your community and to you and your families. The census is a crucial tool to get the funds to invest in our people and build the equitable Illinois that we know we all want to build. So pick up your phone right now and go to my2020census.gov, or you can call 1-844-330-2020, 1-844-330-2020. Take the time to make sure that your voice is heard and that you get counted. So thank you, and now I'd like to turn it over to terrific member of my cabinet, someone who's doing an amazing job in the midst of really one of the most difficult crises our country has seen in 100 years, and that's our Secretary of the Department of Human Services, Grace Ho. Grace?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Governor, for all that you've done. As our leader, we are a leader on issues related to the census and the response rate because of your commitment. And because of the partnership of the members of the General Assembly, because of the work of hardworking grassroots organizations across the state and other critical stakeholders. In this community, we work with the Illinois Primary Healthcare Association and the Illinois Association for Community Action Agencies, who work with us closely, along with hundreds and hundreds of other community organizations that are targeting the hard-to-count communities across the state. All of us together for the past year have been emphasizing, pleading, sharing, tweeting that 10 minutes to complete the census will have reverberations for the next 10 years. So the time is now, right now, to go to my2020census.gov, then spread the word once you've done that. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Onora, who's been an advocate for students as well as libraries, and I think it's so appropriate to hear from her, a former trustee of this amazing Decatur Library Institution, who has been a leader in getting the word out about the 2020 census. Dr. Onora?
"10 minutes. What can you do in 10 minutes? You can read a page in a library book. You can walk from the door here to your car and have a conversation with a friend for a minute or two. But 10 minutes is all that it takes for you to complete your 2020 census. You can complete that census through online, internet, email, snail mail, or the telephone. 3 options, no excuses. Communities of color, you must stand up and be counted in this census. The benefits to our communities are exponential. So I implore you, all of you, think about the importance of this census, occurring in 2020, a year like no other in my 52 years of life. Stand up and be counted. 10 minutes. And I bring to you Senator Andy Menard.
Thank you, Dr. Nora. Governor, thank you for being here in Decatur. I've said that many times, and I would echo the sentiments of the mayor that the governor is very much engaged in this community, and this effort today to underscore what his administration has done to make sure we get a complete and accurate count in Illinois is just another extension of what he continues to do for this community. So we appreciate your presence here, along with Secretary Ho. Mayor, my compliments to you and the city for working diligently to reach deep into the community, to do some things that are maybe uncanny or a little bit different, but I think it's working well. And that's a testament to what the city continues to do on a daily basis. So my compliments to the city. I'm here simply as the last speaker today to reiterate what has already been said. The census takes literally a matter of minutes, but it will impact this community or the community which you live for a decade to come. Case in point, many of the programs now that we have prioritized in this year's budget with the governor's leadership to respond to COVID-19 and the global pandemic have used data that was compiled in the census 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, individuals in Decatur took the time to fill out the census, and that data is relevant to the response to COVID-19 today. So what takes a few minutes impacts this community for a decade to come. If you value this public library where we're standing today, fill out your census. If you value the work that law enforcement does in this community through the Sheriff's Department and first responders, fill out your census. If you value what Richland Community College does on a daily basis to make sure job training programs are present and real in this community, then fill out your census. Literally everything that we do in state government when it comes to the budget in some way hits off of data that is provided only if people fill out that form. That form takes literally minutes, but it will have a positive impact on your community for an entire decade. That's what we're here today to say. Fill out that census. You have a few weeks left to do it. There's a month less than what was anticipated, but don't let that deter you. Take a few minutes, have a positive impact on your community for a decade. Again, Governor, thank you for being here. And now the governor will be available for a few minutes to take questions from the media. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Senator, and happy to take questions from members of the media.
Governor, the mayor mentioned.
Welcome back.
Thank you. The governor mentioned, or the mayor mentioned rather, I just promoted you there, the population loss in Decatur, and year over year we see new data comes out, often putting Decatur among the fastest shrinking cities in America. The opponents of your graduated income tax proposal say that that will drive and further accelerate out-migration. How do you combat that kind of rhetoric about the graduated income tax and for maybe voters who live in this area? They see that happening in their neighborhood and they're worried about that effect.
Well, you know who's been leaving the state? It's working class families and middle class families. And they've been leaving the state as services have diminished. Frankly, as the state has served them less well, it has driven people out of the state. And so if you ask me, in this very critical moment in the history of our state, what you don't want is a diminishment of the services, the supports that people vitally need. And that's what would happen if we don't pass the fair tax. Let me also say that we have one of the most unfair tax systems in the entire nation. And it's been going on now since 1970. Think about that. 50 years in which the wealthiest in our state have been doing a lot better than the people in the middle class or working class families. It's time for us to bring fairness to the people who really deserve it. It's a system of taxation that exists in most other states, which have done so much better than the state of Illinois, in part as a result of the fairer tax system. So that's what I would say in response to those critics.
The Special Investigative Committee into Speaker Madigan begins tomorrow. You've said several times that you want to hear answers from the Speaker, but I wonder what specifically, because he's already said he never passed any legislation with improper motives, and anytime he referred someone to a job, he did so assuming they would do work and they wouldn't be on a ghost payroll of some kind. So what specifically do you need to hear from the Speaker, and should he testify before these hearings?
Well, if you read the deferred prosecution agreement, and if you've read things that have come out of the U.S. Attorney's Office, what you would say to yourself, I think anybody, and we've all had the ability, it's all public information, anybody would say to themselves is, there's so much more here that we need to get answers to, and you don't exactly know what questions to ask because there isn't quite enough in those indictment documents to tell you what avenue the U.S. Attorney is heading down. There are implications, but no explicit information that would give you the answers to the questions that I think most people would ask. But I don't know what those questions will be in total. What I can tell you is that we need to hear much more. And I've encouraged people to ask those questions, and I have said that it is vital that the Speaker speak up and tell us what exactly is being implied in those documents. And until we hear that, it's very hard to make a judgment. What I know is that it's dissatisfying to hear simply the implications and without the rest of the information.
Do I hear you correctly? Are you encouraging Democrats like Chairman Welch on this committee to use this panel to dig in, to investigate, to use subpoena power if they must?
I'm saying something slightly different, but certainly it is true that the Speaker needs to step up and answer these questions. Really, there's almost nobody else that could. And so that's what I'm saying. I think the Speaker owes us all answers.
I'm not aware of any instances where the Department of Public Health has issued fines to businesses who haven't enforced your coronavirus guidelines yet. Why go, and correct me if I'm missing something on that, but why go through all the hassle and trouble of JCAR if those were only ever going to be empty threats?
They're not empty threats. Here's what happens. Once you've been warned a first time, a second time with a disbursement order, if you're not maintaining the proper capacity limits, then you can be issued a fine. And that's something that didn't exist before we went to JCAR, before we got the rule in place. And you know what? When people get warned the first time, they're reacting well to that. They understand that there is a threat of a potential fine, and so they're doing the right thing. I want to stop and step back and say something very important about this. Most businesses were doing the right thing to begin with, and I want to applaud them for doing that. It's very unfair that other businesses aren't, their competitors aren't abiding by capacity limits, for example. That's unfair. One business is doing the right thing, another business not doing the right thing and profiting from not doing the right thing. That's wrong, and that's one of the reasons that we went to JCAR.
We have time for one more question. Can we get your response to President Trump's remarks in Bob Woodward's book today? There's audio from earlier this year when the president said, quote, he always wanted to play it down, it being the coronavirus, because he didn't want people to panic. You have worked closely with the White House during that stage. Any reaction to what the president said in private?
Look, I'm not shocked, knowing this president, that he knew how dangerous this was and then did almost nothing about it. And then when there was an opportunity for him to step up to lead, no, he passed off leadership to the governors. But this president should have, from the moment that he understood how deadly this virus was, he should have put a plan out there and he should have encouraged everybody in the nation to wear a mask, and he should have put orders in place that would have assisted us. I'm talking about the Defense Production Act, for example, that would have assisted us in getting the PPE that we needed so badly early on, that instead we all had to compete for, overpay for, because this president is such an utter and complete failure. So it's not surprising to me that he is now quoted, not just quoted, right? He's on tape saying the things that he's saying. It doesn't surprise me, but it does remind me just how big a failure he is and how terrible he has been at leading in the most critical moment for leadership.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.